Okay. Hello, everybody. It is 10:11 a.m. on Saturday, March 29th. Thank you for attending this, short notice community meeting. Today, we're here to talk about and answer questions for people regarding the decision of the Mohawk Council against Doggy Ethics Commission. As you all know, or probably know, if you're tuning in, on the date of March 26, 2025, the Ethics Commission had rendered their decision regarding the question that was given to them on if Grand Chief Victor Bonspill and Chief Valerie Bonspill had vacated their positions pursuant to sections 9.15 and 9.16 of the Mohawks of Benestogi Custom Electoral Code. Upon deliberation and as per their written documentation, they had found that for section 9.15, 9.15, where if a chief or grand chief or chief misses 3 newly convened council or community meetings, their position is vacant. On that item, the Ethics Commission found that, yes, indeed, Victory and Valerie Bonspill had missed more than 3 meetings. As per the evidence supplied by the council, it amounted to more than 50 meetings since August 1st, 2021. For the second question on if Victor and Valerie Bonspill, per sections 9.16, had engaged in actions that would inhibit or prevent council from doing its duty. They found yes on the 3 items council presented. The first item was, one second. Yeah. Just trying to remember the order in which they asked the questions were asked. Yeah, not just the ordering. Okay, so essentially, we contended that due to, Brian, my mind's blowing. I apologize for this, people. There's just a lot of information here. We've been dealing with it for a long time, but it still gets jumbled up every now and then. Okay, so the item, yeah. Do you remember what it was? It was, okay. So on point 1 was, that they breached their fiduciary duty to the community by requesting the community be put under third-party management. Point 2 was that they breached their duty when Chief Valerie Bonspill assaulted Chief Denise David. And point 3 was not GNR, it was the other one.
Was it in this part that they were mentioning?
No.
This was the miss, this was the engage in wrongful conduct.
Yeah, what was the three, that's the wrongful conduct.
Okay,
Which was the third one?
Training of the band office,
Oh, yeah, chaining of the band office. So that is,
intimidating employees, having everybody walk through that gauntlet of people.
yeah,
Yeah,
so that was the third one in 2024 when they instigated a riot in front of the had the band office chained up for 10 days, which forced council to seek an injunction.
and
Yeah.
then lied about it in the media, saying he didn't know who did it, and it was clear that he
Yes.
was standing there.
Yeah, all that stuff. There was video recording of everything. So with that evidence, the committee found that Victor and Valerie Bonsville had indeed engaged in conduct that prevented them or the council from doing their duties. So second, what was this? Sorry.
It's here if you wanted to actually read it.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, I'll just read out as Chief Amy suggested. So the three incidents are described in the respondent's written response as follows. A, the appellants requested that the federal government remove MCK's financial autonomy by imposing third-party management on Gunstoga. Under third-party management, the government transfers all of the band's funding to a separate entity, which is paid from band funds to manage a program usually operated by the band council. This action removes a community's autonomy over its financial management. The sworn deposition of the appellant Victor Bonsville made known he took this action not because he believed the band was in serious financial trouble, but because of his political disagreement and personal frustration with how money was being spent. That deposition was from his sworn testimony before a judge in the chaining up of the council offices.
I can just clarify just add one point to that. With the third-party management, when we found out about it, we tried to get the minister to send us a copy of that request. And because Victor Bonsville told the minister that he did not want it disclosed, the minister could not send us a copy of that request. So this transparency and accountability was not there. So what we did get is the response of the minister to that request, and that's all we've received since then. We haven't received the original request that Victor Bonsville had submitted to the government for third-party management.
Yeah, when they do a access to information request, they have to ask the person who made the statements permission if they give it, and Victor refused to supply that to council. So since then, we've been unable to get it, but there's some cases coming up where that will be requested as evidence because it's relevant to the topic. So the second item was B, an altercation involving appellant Victor Bonsville and appellant Valerie Bonsville, which took place in the council offices on August 8th, 2022, resulting in Chief Denise David being physically assaulted by appellant Valerie Bonsville, causing Chief David some physical injuries as documented in a detailed incident report filed with the police. It is unknown whether criminal charges were laid. So that, yeah, this was very close to the beginning of the mandate, almost a year after our first day. No one here at that time thought it would devolve into what it is, but it should have been clear to us, at least from that point moving forward, that something was incredibly wrong. Yeah, it was not a good day. Denise was hurt badly. She was in physio and in pain for months afterwards. I know this came up at public meetings. I know there was a lot of misinformation that it didn't happen in those lives. That was refuted and whatnot. There was a whole lot of stuff, but the facts are Denise was seriously hurt She has the medical records to back it up. We saw her and everything going through her arm and her chest were hurt. Like I was telling somebody yesterday, even if you don't like us, even if you don't like the band council system, consider even in our ancestors, if one person had assaulted an elder, what would have been done to them? If that person had been a chief, would they have kept their position? Maybe to make it easier for some people listening to this to parse that, imagine I had hurt an elder physically. I'm sure there would be no issue in immediately saying that, yes, I did a wrong thing and I should be removed for that. Fair enough, that's the way it should be. No individual or chief should get away with assaulting a person and injuring another person, let alone another elder, let alone a colleague on a council that the community has put here for us all to work together and try to reach, conclusions in the best interest of the community. I know there's a lot of people denying this or making excuses. I spoke to somebody yesterday who said, well, Denise can stand up for herself. It's fine. I don't accept that. I don't think anybody here should accept that reasoning. What was done was wrong. And at that point, if all the people who claim to stand up for traditional values had stood up
From the minister.
and denounced, the assault of an elder, we wouldn't have been in this position now. I don't know if anybody else.
Can we take some questions?
Well, okay, let's finish the last one.
Okay.
So the last of the three items, we had submitted as reasons for the removal under 9.16 was the appellants, with the assistance of a small group of community members, chained the front doors of the council building shut on October 25th, 2024, prompting the response to seek and be granted provisional injunction by the Quebec Superior Court, authorizing them to remove the chains and prohibiting the appellants from further interfering with council operations. For more than 7 days, staff and employees were prevented from being able to provide services and programs to the community. We managed to, luckily, with all of the preparations that had been in place for COVID, the staff and us managed to get a lot of work done remotely. Obviously, it's better if we're in office because there's access to all the resources and everything employees may not have at home, and documentation. But it was still a major issue, and it's simply what was that? Okay, yeah, it's simply saying that law doesn't apply in Conestoga if you don't like who forms government. I think a lot of what is going on here moves on that very question on whether law, it doesn't matter whose law or what law, but the idea of a law at all, whether that applies here, because we're, if you don't follow the rule of law, saying that, well, as a social group, we're allowed to make up our forms of life, what is and isn't acceptable, otherwise, if you're not doing that, you're relying on might makes right. And it's simply whoever can intimidate and bully everybody else into submission. And that's what essentially makes things right. I know I don't agree with that. The rest of the council doesn't agree with that. That's why we've had to take the actions we have, because it comes down to standing up for the rule of law. The law doesn't change, it's written. Yeah, there might be contesting views on points, but the point is to speak, use your words, and come to a shared understanding. And at base, I think that's what underpins the disagreement between the majority of chiefs on council in Victor Bonsville and why they have refused to attend well over 50 meetings throughout the year because they're unwilling or unable to use their words to come to an understanding of what is best for the community with the rest of the people that the community has put here to represent them. Serge, Amy?
Just to mention, the document that's being shared on screen right now is actually the response that we received from the minister in regards to the request for third-party management.
Yeah. Okay, do we have any questions then? Let's see. Q&A. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions right now. Anything in chat?
Regarding the validity of the electoral code and its ratification, I can give a little bit of a timeline of how things happen on council's end.
Go for it.
So going back, separate these. So going back, the results of January 20th referendum was first tabled on June 25th, 2015. And here it states within our minutes of June 25th, 2015, the electoral code to accept results of ratification vote, 145 participants voted, 114 yeas, 31 nays. Changes are: candidate must live 3 years in JO110 postal code, must be of Mohawk ancestry. The terms of office will be 4 years, commencing next election. There was one spoiled ballot administrative, one abstention. The Grand Chief was drafted a letter to go to the community informing them of the results of the electoral code ratification vote. This has been translated. The Mohawk Council records will be circulated for signature. Motion to accept the results of June 20th, 2015 ratification vote accepted the new custom electoral code. This was moved by Chief John Canatonquin, seconded by Chief Victor Bonsville, and it was carried. Now, following meeting June 25th, 2015 is the council meeting of November 10th, 2015, where said electoral code comes up again. And here it states MCR 040.1516.00069 ratification vote electoral code. The results of the June 20th, 2015 referendum vote was acted upon at the June 25th, 2015 regular council meeting. An MCR was to be drafted and circulated for signature. This was done at this present council meeting and placed in the MCR binders. Now, this was the exact day, November 10th, 2015, where the BCR was created in order to complete the ratification process for the electoral code. And as it mentioned in the minutes, the BCR is number 40.1516.00069, which we have here, a copy of. Should I read it out?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
We have,
It pretty much states what was, summarizes what was mentioned in the minutes. And so this is the proof that we have that the ratification of the electoral code was brought to the community. And back in 2015, the community stood behind the creation or the electoral code. And this is what we are held to uphold. Now, do we address the?
Look, the validity of the election code isn't in question, okay? It's clear. It's Mohawk law. This is how the elected are going to be selected, and there are rules in there. There aren't many rules around, but at the very bare minimum, the minimum standards are contained in that code. The problem is the interpretations. The interpretation of the Grand Chief is the only one that calls council meetings. Under normal circumstances, that would be true, but this is far from normal of what happened. And like I said to Victor Bonsville yesterday when he came to the office, I said, you're interpreting, calling council meetings as an authority. It's not. It's a duty and an obligation of a grand chief.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the code that says the grand chief shall deny calling council meetings. Nothing.
If I may.
It says he shall. It doesn't say he may. It says he shall.
Yeah, and if I may interject, it's a function of the grand chief is by default the spokesperson of the council. By default, that means he's the one that's supposed to be relaying council messages.
Yeah.
So calling councils isn't something special to the grand chief outside of being the spokesperson. It's simply a function of being the spokesperson. It's not a veto. It's not a privilege. It's an obligation. Council has had issues with this in the past. In 2012 specifically, the chief then.
That was me.
2012?
Yeah.
Was it? No. No. Second. No, 2005. Sorry. Yeah. So in 2005, the council, who had just went through a by-election to replace a chief that had passed, was composed of 6 chiefs and the grand chief, and the 6 chiefs took action against the grand chief because, in their words, you have attempted to take over council proceedings by claiming without foundation that only the grand chief has the power to call council meetings. In that guise, you have also refused to call council meetings in order to prevent council from dealing with the affairs of the community, as it was elected to do. The code is clear that if meetings are called by council, and if you are in attendance, you will preside over the meetings. In your absence, somebody must preside over the meetings, and for that purpose, council has selected Chief Clarence Simon. You are fully aware that that our custom does not give the grand chief the sole right to call meetings. In 2001, with 3 fellow chiefs called numerous meetings without the then grand chief's approval. Your further functions, in according with the band's electoral code, is to act as the spokesperson for the council and the voice of the community. As spokesperson for the council, which represents the community, you have no independent authority to take positions on behalf of council with which council does not agree. By failing to consult with council in respect to the decisions you take in public as our spokesperson, you are acting contrary to your duties as grand chief. Assuming that you will begin regularly attending meetings, council will provide you with directions as to the positions you are to present on behalf of council as our spokesperson. We recognize that you do not necessarily agree with many of the positions of council, and you are free to voice your position to council, and we will listen to your concerns. But once council decides on a matter, you are council's spokesperson, and if you refuse to accept our direction with respect to the public statements that you are required to make on behalf of council and the community council will have to complete taking measures against you for your refusal to discharge your duties. So that was the 2005 council, composed at the time of Chief Doreen Canadongan, Chief Mary Shenning, Chief Michelle Lamouche, Chief John Canadongan, Chief Raymond Gabriel, and Chief Clarence Simon. And the grand chief they were writing this to was Stephen Bonspill. So reading that from 20 years ago, is an exact description of what we've been going through this mandate.
You have questions?
If that family tie and everything is relevant to why Victor is acting this way and where the information is coming from, I don't know, that's your prerogative to.
First question.
One of those. Yeah, no, it's the same one there.
Yeah, oh, you see them?
Yeah. So we'll go to questions. So the first one we had was from Wanda. Who are the Ethics Commission? When was the community notified of the commission? So the Ethics Commission are composed of 3 lawyers. They are Ms. Kathleen Lickers from Six Nations, Ms. Danielle T. Karaki, and Ms. Arlene Henry. They're both non-native, but that doesn't affect their ability to make a judgment on this. I mean, the law is the law, they're lawyers, they know what they're doing. As to how the council, the Ethics Commission came to be, at first, the Ethics Commission wasn't, we didn't think it would go this way. Because if you remember, we had sent out multiple letters following various instances that Victor engaged in. I believe our first letter, it's asking him to essentially the same as the 2005 council's letter, was asking him to essentially start behaving themselves and work with council. This was, if I remember, it was following the assault and other incidents in 2023, early 2023. We sent a letter out detailing our grievances and asking them to comply and work with council. That obviously wasn't followed up. And when we found, I think it's when we found out about first, when we were contacted and told that he had attempted to transfer land from one community member to another, that's when we sent the second letter telling him if he doesn't comply and stop taking actions that first off he's not legitimately empowered to do, we would look into having a vote of no confidence. Obviously he didn't comply, he did it again. There was there's been an official complaint come in and everything regarding another thing. Following that, he attempted to have Robert and Gary Gabriel relinquish their ownership of the GNR property, the dump, to council. For years and years, he knew, we know, our lawyers make it known, the government knows that if the GNR properties were to come under council ownership without any agreements and contracts in place to protect us, the community would be saddled with paying the hundreds of millions of dollars borrowing agreement afterwards, which would be in a position to have no leverage of. The community would be saddled with that debt. Knowing that, Victor went ahead anyways and found a method which didn't require the notification of council that this was going on by having them relinquish ownership of the land. We only found out about this because we saw Gary leaving the office and we were talking just in idle conversation and wondering who owned the land, because we'd been hearing rumors that had been transferred within the family. We asked the lands manager who owned the land, just expecting him to be, one of the people involved. And we were informed that the land had been relinquished. This was news to us. We asked how, when. It was today. We asked the circumstances. We were told that Victor had called the lands manager and told them that he had arranged for Robert and Gary to come in and sign documents to relinquish the land. We were flabbergasted, to say the least. Because how can you have two parties enter into agreement to transfer land without the knowledge of one of the parties? Obviously, if the community is going to be saddled with a gigantic financial burden like this, as well as the environmental burden, as well as the moral burden of this, and the people who caused it were going to get off scot-free and not have to pay anything. We want to know what the heck was going on. We put a stop to that. We informed the government that this was done without council position. And at that point, I believe it was, that was when we sent the letter asking Victor to step down voluntarily because of this. Obviously, he didn't. And then, he went, if I remember the order of operations correctly, following that, he went to start asking the government for third-party management. Following that, that's when we told him we were going to look for a vote of non-confidence. The vote of non-confidence, we thought, talking with people and everything, we thought that's how things were done. There's a question of, well, who does it? Is it the community? Is it the council? Does it have to go to one or the other for ratification first? So we had legal look at it and everything so that, once it's done and everything like that, obviously we knew it would be challenged in court. What would have to be done so that we're doing things legally according to the law. Upon multiple readings of the electoral code, it was found that there was no mechanism in place, actual rules structuring an electoral, a vote of no confidence that had been approved by the community. So that's when we were talking about it, and we kept going over, well, they missed 15 days, they've done this, they've done that. And reading it, we realized, wait a minute, like the electoral code says if they do this, if they do that, the seats are vacant. What does that actually mean? It doesn't mean you bring it to a vote of no confidence. It says it's vacant. It's not like you do this. It says the seat is empty. It says that, but what is the actual process of executing this?
But in the code, it also mentions suspension in the event of if you're convicted or any of the other articles in here. So it alludes to suspensions. The suspension is a prerogative of council.
Yeah. So with that, we had formulated the BCR to enact disciplinary measures on February 27th, 2024. Obviously, you can tell by that date that this had been a long ongoing process. We started in 2021. The first major problems, the assault on Denise, occurred in 2022. And all throughout those 2 years, we were making efforts to have Victor simply comply and not continue with the actions he was doing. We had multiple mediators come in and try to do counseling. On the second one, we had come in, Valerie literally called Amy out of the mediation meeting for something. It was something to do with something. It was inconsequential. But then we hear her yelling and screaming at Amy and Karen, at time ex.
It was regarding the former chief, the minute taker.
Yeah.
Clerk of council.
Yeah, it was regarding the removal of the clerk of council
I
from.
was being accused of targeting her, trying to kick her out, and that I signed the paper that went to payroll, which was false information. I didn't actually sign the paper. It was another chief, but I was pulled out of our mediation for conflict resolution, and just outside the room here, they proceeded to yell at me and to accuse me, and I felt very attacked and was very confused that we were literally in a mediation
Yeah.
meeting,
There's
and our mediators
Source
didn't-
different there. They're
Yeah.
sitting where you are and where Serge was.
Yeah, and our mediators listened to the whole thing happen and didn't step in and apply any of their know-how to help resolve the situation. They just allowed it to continue.
Yeah, yeah. That one, fearing for our safety, Amy had called the police because Valerie and Karen were not going to be simmering down or acting civilly of their own accord. So that was the last time we had a mediator. We were in them acting in good faith. We tried. They continued to take advantage of that as simply a delaying tactic to continue their actions. And it essentially led to the Ethics Commission. So, yeah, anyways, so on reading on reading the electoral code, it clearly states that if they do X, their seats are vacant. So, and then it also mentions that they have a right to appeal before an ethics committee. So it doesn't go into any more detail than that. It doesn't say, it says as may be created by the council. That's the extent of the detail. The electoral code is available online at the council website. If you dispute what I'm saying, you can read it there. It's in plain English. So with that in mind, obviously we knew that council should be arm's length, so we directed our legal counsel to handle the matters of forming this. Obviously, as legal counsel, they don't have the authority to mandate contracts. So council's authority involvement in this was simply to mandate the creation of this and agree to the term of reference for them. Our legal counsel formulated a terms of reference based on past experience, another term of reference for ethics commissions used by other organizations and communities throughout Canada. They formulated a list of highly qualified individuals from throughout Canada. It was almost a 50-50 mix of Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. It ranged everywhere from lawyers with decades of experience in Indigenous law, corporate law, in people who had decades of experience in moderation, conflict resolution, and they had judges, even a pair of retired Supreme Court judges. That would have been very nice if they had been able to. We've been in talks with them, but unfortunately their schedules do not allow. But essentially what it boiled down to was the notification that Conestoga would like to create an appeals, an ethics commission was sent to them. This is something that all of them had done in the past. So they're all familiar with the composition, rules and roles, and what goes into being an ethics commission was. Of the people that were messaged, the 3 people who formed the committee were the ones that were available and chose to take part. Not everybody was willing to take part. Not everybody was available due to conflicting schedules. Once the agreement that they would be the members of the ethics committee was signed, they organized amongst themselves what the form of the commission would take when a matter is brought to them, how much time they would have to deliberate, how they would go about communicating with the applicants. It was chosen that there would be an intermediary, and that was the communications person. the communication person has been totally hands-off with council in this regard, simply being a relay between the Ethics Commission and all of the respondents, both Victor and Valerie and council. So this is simply the person relaying information from parties to parties. So that's how the Ethics Commission came to be, essentially.
You had a question?
I'm pretty sure we mentioned it in a few communications that an ethics commission was being made. I'm pretty sure we mentioned it in an online meeting.
It was mentioned on the radio as well.
So did we do a big publicity blitz? No. But it's also, it's a very technical matter. So, like these people.
Yes, the essence, Brian, the essence of all this is that for at least the 2 years I've been here, this council has been telling the community what we're living through newsletters, through the media, Facebook posts, and still nobody seems to listen. It came to this point, council had to act because there was too much at risk. The budgets, like the daycare almost closed down. And nobody batted an eyelash. We had to race and try to save that, and good thing Amy was there and she took the lead on it and saved the daycare.
Yeah.
Now, these are all things that people have to realize that it takes just one man to destabilize everything. The council, with Victor Bonspiel, he had a golden opportunity to move this community forward one more step, but that's not what he did. I told him he has a choice. I told him yesterday, take it to federal court. You say it's not part of our custom, but you know what he said? We're gonna take this to the white man's court. I said, why not? You forced me to the federal court when you interfered in the by-election. You almost had me thrown out with your appeals board. I had to go to the federal court and fight. And the other thing, people don't remember, in 2021, when I tried to warn people about some of his wrongdoings as a council chief, what did he do? He sued me for defamation to keep me quiet, and now pretends that custom is above the law. It's above the white man law. But he doesn't hesitate too much to use it himself, does he? Accountability, transparency, about this responsibility that he keeps crowing about, butchering our custom as he goes along. It's only you, in the end, your kids and grandkids, that are going to pay for this constant lying and manipulation, the violence that goes with it. Doesn't anybody wonder, what has he promised to these people to be here? People that never showed up at public meetings, that never got involved with any of our community affairs, and all of a sudden they're changing the band office and having people thrown out. What has he promised them that we don't know about? These are all matters for us to deal with. And it's a further burden because we don't have the community's understanding. We don't even get the common respect of just, why don't you call us? Why don't you talk to us every now and then? Because a lot of things that, people accuse us of are coming straight from Victor Bonspiel and shows absolutely no proof, and people believe him. It really is the hardest burden a chief has to carry. But hey, we were elected for that, but there's certain things that just aren't right. Now, the code gave us certain things that we could use to fight back. And it's not for our benefit. Look at us, different ages, different backgrounds. Why are 5 chiefs of different backgrounds working together? And we've worked together since I came in 2 years now. We've had some disagreements, but you know what? We moved beyond them, like Brent said, and we achieve what we need to achieve for the betterment of the community, not ourselves. So this is why this was done. You have all the documentation that we're posting. And as Brent said, it was Victor and Valo who triggered this process, and now they call it invalid.
Yeah.
So please try to be understanding of what we're all dealing with.
Yeah, like as Sarah said, to be clear, the commission was formed because Victor and Valerie requested it. They requested a right to appeal to the disciplinary measures that were enacted on February 27th, 2024. Before that, it would have been just disciplinary measures are engaged. They requested the appeal, so council had to go through the obligation as per the law to form the ethics commission. To touch on Wanda's question, when was the community consulted about engaging the commission on this matter? Well, the community was consulted when it ratified the electoral code. I saw your other question that according, as per your memory, there was not a lot of engagement on the electoral code and people weren't happy with it. Okay, so this is something that, you know, either the entire community has to come together and pass a law determining exactly what thresholds everything must meet moving forward, or something else to that matter. Because just saying some people aren't happy, you know, is not really good enough. Some people aren't happy with everything. You can't, like, you want 100% participation, but you're not going to get it simply because we're different people living different lives with different motivations. The best we can do is try to serve as many people as possible. You know, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one, as Mr. Spock likes to say. So when was the community consulted? When the electoral code was created. Why is that important? Because it's the law. The electoral code is the law. It's written down, and the reason it's written down is so that it doesn't change from one council to another or from one person to another. Everybody's held to the same law no matter what. So why wasn't the community engaged in the commission? Because the law that applies to everybody and doesn't change no matter what until it's amended says that when a chief engages in certain conduct, their seats are vacant and they can have an appeal aboard an ethics commission that the council may create. That's what it says. It doesn't say, well, you bring it to a community vote and, you know, the chief or grand chief is only removed if enough people agree with it. No, the law says, and rightly says, that for certain actions, a chief or grand chief loses their title. This is not strange. This is not weird. It is not unique to Ganasdaga. It is not unique to this time period. All councils in Ganasdaga have always had certain rules that if a chief breaks it, they are removed. Victor Bonspill is not an exception to that. Valerie Bonspill is not an exception to that. It just so happens that those rules are written down in the electoral code. If he doesn't like them, well, that makes sense because he loses his position. But obviously he's going to fight it to keep his position. But that doesn't mean he's allowed to break the rules.
But that's right, if I can, the vacancies actually cleared that up. It's the position of grand chief or chiefs becomes vacant when a person who holds that position committed of a crime, or here, this is a total of 3 council meetings or public meetings. The fact is that he missed 50 public meetings, as Brent mentioned, in the first, over a year ago?
Well, as of from August 1st, 2021, beginning of
Okay.
that date, to the date we enacted the disciplinary measures, in that time, it's been over 50.
But this is very clear that the Grand Chief here does not, this is what it alludes to, that he does not have the ultimate authority if he's subject to these same conditions of removal as any chief.
Yeah.
So it's very clear, the Grand Chief here and chiefs are subject to these conditions.
I mean, there's,
We've had to pass over 50, over 100 BCRs at this table without their presence. How can we justify having people on council that are unwilling to sit at the table and make these decisions? How can you vote someone in and accept not having them sit at this council, helping to govern this community? And it's not something that just happened overnight. It was a process that we ended up going through. And there's a document that I found that actually outlines the process that we followed unknowingly. But it was dealing with a problematic director, and we ended up following these steps. The first is you can live with it. There were a bunch of meetings where the issues were not being addressed because they were trying to be ignored. Okay, maybe, they're just having a bad day. Next meeting can go better. And then after that, after a while, when it wasn't rectifying on its own, then step two is confronting it. This was done by emails during council meetings, and it's when that confronting the situation happened that things got out of hand because they didn't want to hear about it. Because this approach can work if the directors are both willing and able to change. If not, then more serious steps need to be taken. And this is when we had to go to the next step, which was the process of remediation. Now there were 3 requests that I personally put in through email that went unheard. And then following those 3 emails, then it was brought to the community, and the community asked for the remediation. So we got what was needed, the remediation, but only after even more damage was done because the requests weren't being answered. And so for this, we were brought into mediation with Gary and Amy, as Grant was speaking of before. And this approach can work if the director is willing to change, but needs to learn how. Unfortunately, clearly, with the confrontation that happened during that meeting, it was clear that the willingness to change was not there. So then that brought us to the next step, requesting resignation of the problem director. And that's when the letter came into effect, where we requested the resignation of the problem chiefs, or the problem chief. And this can work if they are unwilling to change, but they wish to preserve their reputation. Unfortunately, this was not the case. They did not want to accept that possibility. So then the last final step, remove the problem director, and this as a last resort to the board is the step that you would take when all else fails. And you may remove the director for just cause. And this is where we go to the vacancy, Article 1, Section 9.1, where if they haven't been coming to council meetings, then their seats are vacant. It was mentioned long before we ended up producing the BCR. But we were giving them chances and trying to make things work. It was not working. And this was not our fault. We cannot control the actions of our fellow council members. It is up to them to make that change, not us.
Yeah, I don't, one of your last questioners, you're saying that people are hurting and sabotaging each other. We haven't been sabotaging Victor or Valerie. We've simply been holding them accountable for their actions. You can't in good faith say that an individual who is engaging in harming other people is justified in that when the other people take actions to stop the harming. You know, the sabotaging doesn't go two ways in this. You know, the trust has been broken, you're right. Victor broke his trust, his commitment of trust with Ganasdaga on multiple occasions. He hasn't shown up to do his job and work with council for 4 years, essentially. He broke the trust of Ganasdaga when he covered up and enabled his sister, who broke the trust of Ganasdaga when they attacked and injured another chief and elder. They broke the trust of Ganasdaga when they asked the government to put the community in third-party management. No chief anywhere that works with a good mind and with the betterment of their community anywhere would ask a government to put their community in third-party management. You can't go saying, well, trust has been broken on both sides and that validates that conduct. It doesn't. You know, trying to throw the baby out with the bathwater and everything validates the bad actions of Victor and Valerie. I don't understand why that seems to be the most important thing for a certain segment of people, that Victor and Valerie don't be held responsible for their actions on record that harm the community. Why is it so important that they be seen as not being the only guilty party? It's a way of whitewashing and gaslighting everybody else to make it look like, well, it's not just them, it's everybody. No, it's not everybody. If there was a case where, you know, the rest of us had went to the government and asked them to take away the community's rights, where is it? Where did that happen? It hasn't happened. Only Victor and Valerie have done that. And they said on record that they did it not because we're doing something wrong, but because they don't like the decisions that council makes. So they're just trying to stop it, you know? That's not what the community puts chiefs in place for. You know, the grand chief or another chief doesn't have a veto. We all have to work together. When that happens, there's rules to remove a chief. It's always been that way. Even back under the Confederacy, a chief can be dehorned. The whole 50 Confederacy chiefs aren't replaced because one chief is acting badly. That chief is simply removed.
There was one other question that came up recently that's been on people's minds, was calling of the election. People wanted elections immediately. And this because of all this atmosphere that was created in large part because of Grand Chief Victor Bonspiel at the time. But the fact is that in our code, it says that a full term is 4 years, full term, from the day they were elected to run for Grand Chief. Now, if we were to call the election in June, as it states in the code, then these chiefs here, these new chiefs, will not be able, if they so choose, to run for Grand Chief. They won't be able to because, technically speaking, they fall a month and a half short from the day they were elected back in 2021. And that could be used against them. And it's clear that the mandate is 4 years for a full term. Unfortunately, COVID back in 2021 pushed the date back of the election because the vaccines were just starting to roll out. So we weren't sure at the time if a fair election could be held under those conditions. So it was pushed back a month and a half under exceptional circumstances and through no fault of their own here their term was effective, and the code itself. So we would need to reset the clock in the code. Because there are articles here that deal with early elections, but they don't necessarily, the code does not address when an election has been pushed back, and it doesn't deal with it. I was trying to look in it, trying to find something. Myself, I wouldn't really much care if it was in June or in late July, because I fulfilled many of those terms, I fulfilled those conditions. But it's unfair to the other chiefs who might freely want to run for Grand Chief. So a month and a half doesn't make much of a difference in a 4-year term. We just have to observe the rules, like Brent was saying a while ago. There are rules, there aren't that many, but those that are there consist of the minimum standards. At least this shall apply. And that's the thing with Victor Bonsco yesterday. He was talking about custom, and he comes up with this whole mess of things. And I said, look, custom is expressed in many ways. We have customs when it comes to hunting. I said, I know you don't hunt, but we have a custom of when we go hunting for a particular game, how we hunt, and what do we do after we make a kill. That's a custom. Another one for fishing. Might be another one for other reasons, but for elections, for the elected, the custom is this. This is the custom for this now. But he doesn't want to observe this. He violated several things in here, like he was supposed to do. It says, when the Grand Chief, upon being elected, shall appoint a vice chief. It says shall, not if he feels like it, but he didn't do it. Why? So, tossing aside rules and regulations that don't suit us, no wonder we don't make as much progress as our sister communities.
I'd like to say, Kawanda's comment again, that council has been stuck for 4 years. We haven't been stuck. But this whole time, the remainder of the chiefs have been working every day for the benefit of the community, and we've made progress.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not as fast as we like, and some things were hindered because of the conflicting narrative Victor was presenting to the government, so that they were unwilling to commit to anything while this conflict was happening. So we've had extra burdens because of that. It's been difficult, unnecessarily difficult, because of what Victor's doing to get very basic things done. But regardless of that, we've moved ahead on many, many things. Amy, go ahead.
Okay, some of which are, for instance, the housing initiative that we are going to have a meeting to talk more about. So I'm just going to mention it briefly here. We have amassed, the initial was 1.425 million for social housing. We've also gained some extra funding since then. So we are at a total of 2.5 million. But there are some stipulations for for specific envelopes of monies that we have for this. And seeing as the Stream 4 initial social housing has proved to be more innovative than expected, we have been shifted to Stream 5, therefore giving us an obstacle to deal with, where we were asked to now produce a feasibility study before we can move forward. So this is why it's being prolonged a little bit more, because we have to complete that feasibility study. And that is just one of the things that we've worked on. Another one is the communications because there was a need for better communications. So we have located, we have developed, and we are ready to launch. Our launch date is April 1st for our MCK Connect communications app that will be available on Google and the App Store. So this is another thing that, despite everything that was happening, we were able to get done. on top of that, we also have 1.3 million for IELCC, which we have put together a committee, busting down the silos of the health center, the daycare, education, cultural, and council, all sitting together on the same committee in order to come up with a plan for this 1.3 million for our 0 to 6 year olds. So that is another thing that we got, despite all of the conflicts and issues that we were facing. Also, as well, cultural wise, I don't know if you guys saw the flyer that went out, but we have our 2-dog wampum that is coming home. We are in the works of actually expanding our cultural center in order to house that, and looking at a next phase to possibly plan on having a heritage building created so that more belts can come home. So there has been progress. Yes, we do apologize that it hasn't been communicated well, but we knew from the start this was the issue. This is why we were investing in trying to get the communications out in order to solve that issue. Now, there are other things that we have been facing that have not been brought to light. For instance, there was a time where both Valerie and I were on the Facebook page, and we were putting out information for everyone. This ended up stopping because there were 2 occasions where some community groups were forced to, even though they had previously reserved the school gyms, they were forced to give up their spot in order for the Grand Chief and Chief Valerie, unfortunately, to hold public meetings to serve their purpose. And these groups were Onadogo and Health, and there was another one that I know of, a health center activity. Both of those were forced to remove themselves, even though they had previously reserved the school gym. And when I went online to say, no, you cannot do this, they previously reserved, find another day, find another place, respect your community, and allow them to use this facility the way they had previously reserved to. I was removed from Facebook, and then that's when the gatekeeping of Facebook started happening with Chief Valerie as the only admin. And that's when they were only putting out things that regarded them, and you didn't see any communication from the rest of council because they were gatekeeping it. And we only regained access to it on October 2024. So that's why there was a little bit of a change, and you started hearing from us again, because that's when we regained access to actually communicate with you in that way. And aside from that, there was also transparency wise, you want to talk about transparency? Well, we spoke with our IT, and we created a drive for the chiefs in order to save all of our BCRs, our minutes, our everything that we're working on. We have one place where we can save it so that all the chiefs can see, in order for us to be transparent with each other and accountable to each other. Now this, when it was brought to the table, when I had brought it to the table, the Grand Chief went and blocked access to it. Now, how is that beneficial to our group? How is that transparent? It was not. And it took some time for us to have that fixed, because our admin staff was not aware of how to juggle having one side blocking and the other side saying, no, this is not acceptable. So this is why we had to affirm to our admin that it's not one chief that can unilaterally make a decision. And council is a whole. The Grand Chief is a spokesperson. We are not a hierarchy up here. We are a circular framework. We are all equal. We do have a spokesperson, but we all have an equal voice at this table. And we are not to prevent each other from being able to do well for the community, in order to help the community advance, in order to communicate with the community. And these are the things that were done. So it's not coming out of nowhere. And it's unfortunate that the community wasn't in the loop with all of this, but we were handling it on our end.
Yeah.
And we just needed the community to trust that we were taking the steps needed when they were needed, and trying to reconcile and to regulate what was happening as we went. But unfortunately, it, as I listed the steps before, we tried to get this done, but the willingness wasn't there. The teamwork wasn't there. That's why when I kept hearing, you guys should just work together, it frustrated me so much because we were trying to.
Yeah. It's like a way of covering up, you know, brushing everybody with the same paint when, you know, we're trying our hardest to make things work and others are trying the hardest to make things not work. And yet, you know, it seemed to be the exact same thing, you know, it's very hurtful, I won't lie, and I think maybe that's why we react negatively to this, because we go through a lot of stress. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, we've all had moments where we're a hair's away from quitting, breaking down, and just saying, screw it, we don't care anymore.
Or wake up in the morning and contemplate, oh, do I want to be there?
Yeah, no, I mean, and then being told, well, essentially that, you know, you're just as much a part of the problem when you've spent, you know, the last week trying to come up with problems and being hit with more barriers to it and more negativity from the community and everything like that. It's very painful. I don't think a lot of people would sign up for this more than once. I think we're very broken as a community. We're very much focused on what's ours, and only look at it from what we can get out of it.
An individual.
Yeah, individualism has taken root. Individualism, capitalism, self-enrichment is probably the custom of Venezuela now. And it hurts a lot because even everybody in the community mouths the words that they're here to do community work, that they're here for the community, but it's not true, you know? I think a lot of people who've spent their time doing community beneficial things, everything from organizing kids' activities, sports, things through the health center, things through the band office, things through the churches, things through the longhouse, has felt that way, where they're trying their best and they're putting their time and efforts to do something for the community, and everybody, or not everybody, but people just come along and shit on it. And I'm sorry to use that language, but people like to shit on stuff other people do here. And it seems like council is one of the few avenues where it's completely acceptable to do that in the most vile way possible. Like, you look at the conduct and the words that are spoken by a lot of people in the community discussion group that support Victor. And I keep thinking about the 50 Confederacy chiefs, the condoled chiefs. There's one position there, I think it's on Ottawa, where their job is to get rid of all the bugs and bad things that come close to the council fire. So our ancestors understood that there are things and people and groups that will try to undermine us. And it's not just I'm not speaking just Confederacy or Longhouse here. I'm saying every group. There are people that will try to undermine, sabotage, and destroy this. And in Venezuela, we've seemed to normalize that. Yeah, we get angry, we get hurt, and we speak harsh words. But we show up every day. We're not lining our pockets with community money. We're not here sending up family members in houses or trying to make all the jobs just for our group of friends, or saying that if you don't vote for me in the next election, I'm going to make sure you lose your job. And that's the thing that's going on right now with somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
we know a lot of people have felt the same way and gone through the same thing for very many reasons. And the question is, we can't change that in council on our own. But I think it's necessary to call out that bad behavior and confront it directly. And the person or persons doing it, to call them out and say they are acting badly and remove them. Removing Victor and Valerie is just an extension of that, but I think it's something that has to be done in the broader context of the community. There are people that do very bad things here, and nobody's willing to name them. There are people that, mouth off and think it's just words, or say specifically to hurt or incite other people. I think that's something that has to be fought against no matter what. Go ahead. Sorry.
Back to a little bit more transparency. We have been humiliated in public. We have been threatened. Our homes have been broken into multiple occasions. We have had our vehicles sabotaged to the point where I don't even have a vehicle anymore. So you want transparency? There are things that we have gone through that we have not been telling you. And that being said, everyone here, we're still here. We each have our own whys. And my why is you. Every day that I fight myself in the morning to come to work, it's my why that brings me back here. It's you, it's my community. It's my this is my home. You guys are my family. And I'm not just saying my immediate family. All of the children in this community are my children too. I would treat them as if they were my own. All of you people are my family. You're my brothers, my sisters. This is my why. This is why I'm still here, why I keep coming, despite all of the hardship that we've gone through. I am here for you. I don't know everyone else's why, but that's mine. And it's stronger than all of the hardships that I've gone through. Being here for you, the way we should be here for each other. I'm pushing through the way that I can. We all need to look at ourselves and wonder, how can we make this better? Not fight each other, not make it worse. How can we help each other? How can we serve our purpose for our family, our generalized family? It's not just me, it's not just you, it's not me against you, it's us. Our mindsets have to change. We need to step away from this individualism. We need to start looking at each other for support, for help. We're all hurt. We all have a touch of that generational trauma. But it's our mindsets that are going to have to change in order to fix it. And the work that Wanda has done was really appreciated. That has helped me personally in certain ways. Therapy. I'm not ashamed to say I've gone to therapy to help deal with these situations. But we all need to make those steps to help ourselves so we can be stronger to help each other and not fight each other. That's all I want to say.
Okay. That was it. It's 11:30. If there's any more questions, I think we hit on a lot of stuff. We hit on the specifics. What our points were, why we brought this to brought the removal of Victor Gallery up, what the history is, what the decision was, and whatnot. I don't know if there are any more questions from people on this.
Communication is asking if there's a hand.
Okay, so we had a question. Caldwell Valerie White refused to post anything that was about the one Facebook blocking access and have only access again on 2024. And please, if you would like to say something, please use the raise your hand function. And I think we can unmute the mic for you if you have if you'd like to say something. So in your at the top of the screen, you'll have raise your hand function, and that'll tell our communications officer that you'd like to say something. Okay. So regarding the Facebook being blocked, that was obnoxious. We attempted many times to get things pasted, just activity reports or notices when things would come out. We would ask for things to be posted. They weren't posted, but because of the password and everything like that, having access to it, I mean, you can't literally pry a password out of somebody's head. So we had to go once we were at a loss, but once we had a communication person there more familiar with the procedures and processes Facebook used. And it still took many months and everything, but eventually we were able to show that the council was the legitimate government body of Gunnestock and get access back to the Facebook account to continue posting updates and notices to the community. Like Amy said and everything, there's an app upcoming soon, very soon, that'll be much better in keeping people up to date, much more useful. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to test it yet, but from what I've seen, it looks good. It looks really, really good. So don't be shy. If you have any questions, raise your hand. If there's something regarding the Ethics Commission that we missed, or a question you have about it specifically, or even a question, anything else, please feel free to respond. What's this? Yeah. Okay. Were there any other items we can talk about right now? Okay, so that's action. So yeah, so council has been under a lien a little bit for about 20 years from a past creditor stemming from the Neocan fight. It's a long story, but essentially they claimed that council owed them money when council had signed a document, a BCR stating that they were not to charge over a certain amount. They ended up charging well over that amount, but because of the incident with Jimmy Gabriel's house and everything like that occurring at the same time as the court hearing was to have that dismissed, council at that time was unable to supply legal counsel. So the judge found in this lawyer's favor. That was 20 years ago, and it's a debt like that is supposed to expire every 10 years unless the person makes a recorded effort to try and collect on it. with Ganastag and reservations. In general, it's difficult for this because our non-movable assets are protected from seizure. So the opportunity to see something comes along rarely. In 2016, I believe it was when he would have been up for deadline to see something. Council did not receive notice of any attempts. So it went through the process to have this debt removed in the long run, but the person went through, I see your hand, Karen, we'll get to it in a moment. I'll just finish this. The person took it to court saying that they had made the attempt. And even though council hadn't been notified and proper procedure hadn't been followed for notification, that they still attempted, and that should extend their right to hold this debt for 10 years. Council objected to that. It went to court again. I think we went on one, then he appealed, and the Quebec Court of Appeals found in his favor, and we were forced to take it to the Supreme Court of Canada. That hearing just took place 2 weeks ago or last week.
March 19th.
19th, was it? Shit.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, 10 days ago. We won't know what the final verdict is for about, well, maximum of 6 months and everything like that. But we're confident that it's on our side. And we'll update, well, the next council will have to update you on that, because unless we get it before the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
This would have been a non-issue had the Grand Chief at the time, Stephen Bonsbill, actually appeared in court when he received the documents. However, he did not appear, and this was similar to another case where they actually won the decision because they appeared in court. So this whole situation that we are in was because Grand Chief Stephen Bonsbill did not do his duty while he was in office.
Okay. Karen?
Just a couple of things for myself. I appreciate all the information I'm hearing today. The only thing that I, as a community member, don't appreciate, I mean, we can speak of councils before, we don't have to use names. I feel like that's bashing. So that's
We
just
have
one
to-
thing
we
I wanted
have
to
to-
say. I understand. I want to finish talking, please. So this is how I feel personally. There's probably reasons, but I just want to say this is how I feel about that. We can talk about, like the administration of 2001 or whatever. This is just my comment for that. I do have a question on housing with the infrastructure and all of that that's going to be going. Will that be handled internally, or are we going to be going, what's the plan of action for that? Are you going outside to do the panelists for the people that are going to be working on it? And can we have that information prior to, shouldn't we be part of the decision making in Ganastadage as community members? Like, I really feel like my voice is not heard. I got your communications guy that answers, or girl that answers on the page, but I don't feel welcome going in my own band office. I feel unheard, and I feel like anything that I say is just dismissed because, oh, well, that's Karen Murray. And this is something that I feel has been going on. So that's just what I wanted to say on that. But for the housing, the question, if I could get an answer, I'd appreciate it. Nyawa.
In regards to not feeling heard, this is exactly why we have the communications app coming. Because it's, number one, information dissemination. Number two, there is a process, a way for you to actually communicate back with us on it. And not in a way like Facebook where you can be bashed by other community members. It's in such a way where it would create a ticket for us to address specifically. And if we don't address it, your ticket would stay open. So
But you see, Amy, that's where the problem is, Amy, because, I wish that we could just go back to in person. I understand there might be some people that don't feel safe, but there's ways around that. But we need, you talk about unity a while ago, you talked about getting back to being one. Being on the internet is not it for our community. We need that one-on-one. I need to be able to look you in the eye and say how I feel. Yes, in the beginning, everybody's got a whole lot that's going on. It's not going to be easy. But if we're going to work together to get back to what we were, this is what we're going to need to do. Meet together, have these meetings together, not online. Not everybody is equipped for that. I know you've heard it. I know you've seen it being written as well. But we need to have that connection that we don't have. And the internet is not going to provide that for us.
There's,
Yeah.
there's always, we do have an open door. Anyone can, if you want one-on-one, anyone can come to council. I know you said you don't feel comfortable coming to council, but in the way that you don't feel comfortable coming to council, we are not as comfortable having the public meetings, because the majority of those meetings, there are specific group that show up that tend to rally a riot, I would say.
But they
And
are community members too, and they need to be addressed too.
yes, and we are creating channels. If they don't take those channels, that is not on us, that is on them.
If I could say something. Everybody has the right to be heard, but everybody also has to keep the peace. When people form a mob and yell down other people and get up and start screaming at other people in a community meeting, they're not keeping the peace. You know, if the peace isn't kept, everyone does not have the freedom to speak. And that's exactly what certain people take advantage of in order to silence other people during community meetings. If you feel safe, you're very lucky, and that's a privilege you have.
I don't feel
Other
safe
people do
anywhere in Ganesadage, but that's not the point. The point is, if we're going to create that unity that Ganesadage needs to have before the outside has us in, we need to start finding different ways. Mobbing is not the right way, and internet is not the right way, but there's got to be somewhere where we all got to meet in the middle, because we are a community at heart.
Internet is the right way for some people because they can't go to the public meetings. So we are not going to close that channel because some people would like us in person. We do have in person. You can come to the council. We are going to work to have in-person meetings, but we need to make sure of the safety as well.
If everybody isn't free to speak their mind, nobody's free to speak their mind. It comes down to what I said before. It's a question of, do we follow the rule of law, or does might make right? That's what it comes down to. And right now, there are certain people who believe that might makes right.
Yeah, well, I remember one council, one public meeting, it had become like a real circus, and I was trying to make a point. I wasn't yelling. I was trying to make a point, and Chief Bonstable at the time, he's yelling at me and he's telling me to cut my hair. Cut my hair. You look like a bum or something. And I'm standing there like in shock that a Grand Chief would yell at a band member like that, tell him to cut his hair. And I had somebody behind me who was yelling at me that I had no right to speak. I had like, sit down and shut up. And I'm looking at her and I'm saying, no, I'm gonna have my say. I'm not gonna allow you to shut me up. So
Yeah, I mean, and that goes for you're able to stand up, but what about older people? Like my grandmother doesn't, she can get mad, but she can't stand up to like a 6-foot guy yelling at her, or even like a 5'4" older lady coming and screaming at her. You know, that's what I've seen with my
That's
own.
not right either. You're absolutely right, Brad. That's not right either. What I'm saying is we got to start thinking outside the box and recreating Ganesadage for all of us, where we
Yes.
don't, anyone has to feel that way. Anyone doesn't have to feel like insecure, like we got to take our territory back. This is where we're at right now. Like above everything else that's going on amongst council, amongst community members, we got to unify for our people. That's what we got to do, because right now we don't own our territory.
I would say there's, okay, I'm gonna into
get-
different political views.
Getting back to the request on the housing and the in-person, in order to respond to you in that way, we are planning on using a lesser politically driven, forum, like for housing, we do plan on having, on testing out an in-person, meeting with that, and it's coming up. So judging how that goes, we'll know if we can start having the in-person meetings. So we are going to test it, and it is coming very, very soon. I should have mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, but to remain civil, you have to remember, to remain civil is a private choice. And if those who choose not to be civil in these public forums, there's not much you can do about it.
Yeah.
You can ask them to leave, but again, it's voluntary whether they want to leave.
Yeah.
And you're stuck with the same problem. It's a social acceptability or social contract amongst ourselves that we have to accept that there are certain norms that we can respect so that we can have that dialogue and find that common ground where compromise is possible.
Well, this is where I go back to the idea of Doll and the person with the feathers in the wing that removes
Yeah.
the bugs and everything going towards the fire.
Yeah,
That's what it meant, was when you had people yelling and screaming and not keeping the peace and not being civil at meetings, they were removed. That's what we have to do, but then the people that are being removed scream and yell and say that you're not listening to them or respecting them as community members. So what are the rules? We tried to put down a very simple rules of conduct during some of our meetings. And a lot of the people that like to yell and scream said, no, who are you to make rules? We didn't agree to this. You have to bring it to the community and everything. You have no right and everything. You're just trying to silence us. But do you see how that's just a self-serving argument so that they can continue to oppress and not keep the peace and keep pressing their own privilege over everybody else? I'm asking, do other people see that? You can just put a yes or no. So that would be a basic thing. Rules for community meetings, that if somebody breaks them, they're removed from the meeting. That would be an easy way. But like we've seen, a lot of people will fight against that because they only go to community meetings to yell and scream. So at some point, you have to not listen to them. And this is, I'm not here on this council to work for the betterment of people that are trying to dismantle Kanisadaga. The people that don't keep the peace, the people that don't respect law, that don't respect the well-being of everybody are people that Adaho would remove from a council meeting. And I think that's what's needed. I think I am not here to be peaceful with those people or to continue letting them oppress everybody else. I think there should be rules in place and an organization in place to remove those people for the betterment of everybody else. Because otherwise you can't have a council meeting, you can't have a community meeting, you can't have a community with those people acting that way. Yes, that's my view on it.
Respect is like a dance. If one person isn't showing up, then it doesn't work. If there are no sides. I was gonna say if one side, but there are no sides. But if individuals don't show up as, our culture, we're supposed to, like at our core, we're supposed to have respect for each other. Those individuals that show up and shout and cause issues, they're not being who they should be. They're not connected to their core. They're lost, they're disconnected. They need to find themselves and find who many of us need to, myself included, we need to find who we are again. We need to connect back with that respect. And that's when these in-person meetings are gonna get, because we're gonna put aside our differences. And we're gonna work to make a step forward, even if it's small steps, 1 step forward, 2 steps forward. But so long as those individuals are enabled to lash out, those steps are practically impossible. And I was also advised to mention before we go, because I know we're probably reaching close to the end, that if possible, can those of you here and spread the word. We do want our list as updated as possible so that all of our channels of communication can be open to you. So if you can use our QR code or follow the link to just update your information so that it's the most recent. And should you download the MCK Connect app when it is available, we're working on actually getting a section that you can update your information on there as well. Now, the way that works is you will have to register, and there will be a time period that you may have to wait in order to be approved, because there are different classifications, but that's all behind the scenes. You don't need to worry about that. But we do want to have as many members' informations updated as possible before the next election, so that no one doesn't get the information because of a lack of action on your part to update your info.
Okay. I think we'll call it unless you have anything you want to close with, Serge?
No, I just want to thank whoever was able to make it this morning. I know on a Saturday morning isn't always easy, but very much appreciated. And I'm hoping that some of the reasoning that we've brought to you for certain decisions clarified some things for you, and that maybe you could help us clarify it with friends, family, who may have had some doubts. But the council, rest assured, had no choice at this point, and we acted in the best interest of every member of the community. So I really appreciate this time for you listening to us.
And when you're given information, ask for the proof. Don't take it at face value. Don't accept what someone says just because they've said it. Ask, okay, show me where's the document that you can, that shows that is true.
Yep.
Even to us,
yeah.
We shouldn't function in a misinformation type of an atmosphere. We should be truthful to each other, yes, but when it's become so condensed, so dense with misinformation, at this point we have to start asking. We each have to make that step in the right direction to ask, okay, this is what this person is saying. What are their motives? Where is their proof? Why are they sharing this information with me? What is it? Is it to hinder or is it to help? Ask yourselves these questions, because those that are here to help will easily be able to give you that proof.
With that, we'll close the meeting. Thank you for staying. I believe this will be recorded and should be available on the MCK website and probably Facebook at some point later. Other than that, Nyakoa, and have a nice Saturday, even though it's raining and slushy. It's supposed to freeze.
Hello.